The Word Docs would like to pay our respects to the Kaurna people on whose lands we are today, and to pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging. And we would like to recognise that this is country of powerful storytelling and knowledges, and that we're honoured to be here today.
Why don't you write when you don't need money, honey? That would certainly make a hit.
Welcome back to Word Docs. I am your host, Alex Vickery Howe. I am here with Dr. Amy T. Matthews.
Hi.
And Dr. L. Sean Williams.
Sean L.
Who's that exactly?
Sean
Have you replaced me with my evil twin, L. Sean?
Williams.
Dr. Sean L. Williams.
Doesn't he run a religion somewhere, L. Sean Williams?
If he doesn't, he should.
He should. One job.
One job.
I know. And we are here to talk about our dark and disturbing dead tomes.
Dum, dum. Oh, hang on. Wait a sec.
Excellent.
I've been wanting to use the sound effect forever.
Excellent.
The books that never were but could have been and might be one day.
Or were and just never.
Sold.
Yeah.
Because they were so bad in the case of mine.
I have one that's 140,000 words.
So who wants
What
to
a waste of
start
time.
the monologue of shame first? Should I start on my left or my right?
I'll start with Sean because I feel like I've been eating a lot of oxygen in the last couple of episodes.
Oh, really?
Because
I've
the
been
two
eating a
of
lot
us
of
are eating
chocolate.
chocolate. That's why. Okay, Sean, your number is up. Tell us.
What is your number, Sean? What is your number?
23.
Excellent.
Tell us about the book that
So-
never happened.
Well, there have been several. So we might have talked about juvenilia before, but I wrote about
We
5
can't
novels.
remember.
We can't remember. I did do a search on our Word Docs document, and the word juvenilia didn't come up. So, but that doesn't mean we didn't talk about it. So
Maybe that was a dead tome.
maybe it was a dead tome.
The Dead Word
Topical.
Docs episode.
True, that's very meta.
So you've got
Right.
a couple of.
So, yeah, when I was starting out writing in high school and after high school, I wrote about 5 novels that were all terrible. And I do have a theory that particularly young men, because young men are a bit hopeless, there are certain novels we need to get out of our system. So my first novel, The Slug in the Sky, was a sex romp in space.
Oh, my
Douglas
God.
Adams.
Are
It's
you
so bad.
serious?
Yeah,
Are you
I'm
serious? The Slug in the Sky
Yeah.
is a sex romp.
It's a ghastly
that's
sex romp
amazing.
comedy.
Sounds
It's-
like weird Jabba the Hutt
And-
kink.
And all the aliens have 13 letters in their names and they're unpronounceable.
I need to read this.
Oh, it's so bad. You can go to the Fryer Library in Queensland and find the original typewritten document. if
You've
you're
left it
desperate.
there. It's part of a.
It's all part of my collection.
The archive.
Oh, the
Sean
Sean
L.
archive.
Williams archive.
That's right. And for my second novel, I thought, well, I'll do something serious now. And I did something really grim, dark and awful.
Is this the snail in the sky?
I forget what that was called. It's so bad. It's a post-apocalyptic cyclical load of rubbish. But so I got a bunch of this stuff out of my system. So I don't need to do that kind of fiction anymore because I did it.
When you say every young man needs to get a certain story out of their system, do you mean like a genre or like?
Yeah.
Do you mean sex romps? Is this what
sex
you're
romps,
talking about?
basically. Yeah, that's
Really?
right. And the grim dark. I kind of think
The grim dark
I've
sex
just got
romp.
that extras episode now with Patrick Stewart, and then all her clothes fell off.
I've seen everything.
that's right. But anyway, but that doesn't mean that you still don't have dead times later in your career. So I think about
I write
the-
sex romps now for a
Yeah.
living. So
I know, but that's because you're good at it. I was terrible at it. No
These
matter how
were
hard I
grim
tried.
dark sex romps, particularly.
there were,
Well,
the
no, the
word
second one
slug
was.
was in there, so that's never a good thing.
Oh, they're so bad. Maybe one day. No, I can't talk anymore about the book. It's too
So
embarrassing.
what?
And-
So what is it that you believe makes them unmarketable? I mean, is it?
well, they were terrible. They were badly
Why?
written,
Badly
and the plot
written.
was
So
stupid. And I
okay.
was 15.
Okay.
So all the sex stuff is not based on any
On
kind of
reality?
experience. It's just, I don't know. It's so bad. But my most recent dead tome was a book that I wrote about 6 years ago now, I think, and it was written in the depths of my depression and my chronic pain. And it was what I thought. I mean, I actually sold the book on a synopsis. It was quite a saleable YA paranormal kind of.
And does the book
Contemporary book.
match the synopsis?
Yeah, the book matches the
So it
synopsis.
does what it says on the label.
It does what it says it does, but it just didn't work. And I'm happy to edit and
What
and
didn't
edit
work
and edit.
about it?
Well, this is the thing. So I was working with my wonderful editor, Anne Hoppy, in the US. And,
Hi, Anne.
Hi, Anne. Wonderful
Hey.
Anne. Hope you're listening to this. I loved working with you. And she edited Impossible Music too, which is the book they eventually took.
I love that book.
When we
I
realised
just
that.
love that book. If you haven't read
thanks,
Impossible
Annie.
Music, everyone, you should go out and buy it.
Thanks, Annie. So
I
that's a
love
book
it.
that
And
has...
it's set in Adelaide too,
set in
which
Adelaide,
is special.
that's right. And it had similar kinds of themes. And it's the book I wrote after this disastrous novel, which was called In My Mind. Don't steal that title. It still hasn't been used, and I can't believe it.
TM.
TM. That's right. You can't trademark
That's
titles,
never been
sadly.
used.
Yeah, I can't find it anywhere, but I'm sure somebody will use it because it's such a good title. But it didn't work in the first draft, and then it didn't work in the second draft, didn't work in the third draft,
and when
didn't
you
work in
say
the fourth
didn't
draft.
work-
There were structural issues, there were character issues, there were motivation issues, there was all sorts of stuff going on. And eventually my agent and my editor decided that it wasn't going to be ready in time. So we swapped it out for Impossible Music.
Which came relatively easily, or
Yeah, that came a lot easier. So I think it was because I drafted this book in a pretty dark kind of place. It's not a dark book, but it made it very hard for me to see it from the outside, and I still can't see what's wrong with it. So I'm about to
Wow.
engage our editor and friend Darren Nash.
Hi,
for
Darren.
long-suffering Darren Nash.
Yeah, once Darren has finished editing Alex's books, he's going to have time
I
to
don't
work on
Alex's
mine.
books are long.
I still think that Darren is Sean. I haven't come to the.
It's possible.
I'm hiring
belief.
myself to work
You're
on my
hiring
own book.
yourself.
That's not going to go wrong at all. So the book is sort of dead. It's a draw manuscript at the moment, but I'm determined to get it out there because I think there's still some cool ideas.
And you know what's interesting is sometimes the imperfect books are amazing. Do you know,
there's
like,
something special about
because
them.
I have a book I tried to fix for years, and I actually think it's great the way it is. I think it's meant to be imperfect.
Yeah.
No one's going to publish it, but
Well,
It
I've
is
thought
what it
about
is.
self-publishing this. I've thought about putting it up on Wattpad and all those kind of things,
why do you
just
just
getting
put
it out there.
up on the Evil Empire one, not Wattpad, where you could get some money out of it?
Well, I could do that too, but then it might just disappear without trace, and then it's done. It can never be published and never be edited again. So I'm going to get Darren Nash's opinion on it.
Just get a take. Can I just circle back a little bit?
Hmm.
What I find really fascinating is, I'm very inexperienced in this area, and so I'm very bad at telling when something works or doesn't, and I often get it completely wrong. The things I think work don't, and the things that I think are a disaster, someone like Darren will go, yeah, that's fine. But you're a very experienced writer, and it's interesting to me when you say, I don't know what doesn't work.
What's that old line that might originate from Kate Forsyth? You never learn how to write books, you only learn how to write
That
this
book,
book.
yeah.
So
Oh, yeah, that's an old one. I can't remember who originally
good
said
though.
it.
it's the
been
sort of
around
thing
a
that
long
Kate
time.
would say. Hello, Kate, by the way.
Hi,
Hello,
Kate.
Kate.
I
Hi,
hope
Kate.
your dog's going well, Kate.
Um,
She has a ridge brat.
Ah.
But also I think sometimes you just can't see the woods for the trees.
And that's certainly the case with this book. So I became, because I was so depressed at the time, I became so depressed when I was trying to work on this book, to the point where just opening the manuscript would send me into
Oh,
the
yeah,
depths of
that's
despair.
where you put it in a drawer.
So I actually changed the name of the book from In My Mind to Out of My Mind, just for me, because that's how it was making me feel. But then thankfully I got to stop working on it for a few years. And earlier this year I went back and read it, and I thought,
Is it better than you thought?
well, I thought it had real potential, but
Yeah.
my agent and both my editors disagree because they don't want to buy
Did
it.
the characters
So-
take on some of your depression?
She goes through a lot of stressful situations.
Because I
that's
find-
certainly true.
If you're down or tired, it's funny because I'm often writing over the summer when teaching's finished, and I find in my first drafts my characters start off really tired. They just are the way I'm feeling.
They've been marking for days.
Yeah, they just and often a note is, oh, this character's a bit flat here, and it's like, yeah, I know, but I wonder if they take on a bit of your depression as well.
Could be, although I tried very hard to write that out. I mean, she's socially isolated and so on and so forth, but I tried very hard not to make her feel as depressed as I felt. But then at the time I didn't realise I was. Oh, look, I don't know. It's one of those things. It's a bit of a blind spot, and it's irking me because it's my only unpublished book in about 50, and I'm thinking, well,
that's a
Damn it.
pretty good
Well,
run.
it's good. It is a good. It's a
I
good
know,
strike
I
rate.
know.
That's pretty good.
if that stays in the drawer forever, then it can be published when I die, or it can just be burned with me on
It
my
is funny
pyre.
you hit the stride though, don't you? Because I'm thinking my last unpublished book was a long time ago. Like, right, they are more at the beginning.
Is that the 140,000 word one?
Yeah, that was before I sold the Tesla Sue books.
Tell us about that one. What's the
It's
story
a spy
there?
book. It's a Napoleonic spy
Is
book.
this
I
the
love it.
imperfect
I want to
one?
read it. Can you send it to
Yeah,
me?
yeah, it's very long. And I think the main character doesn't work. And it got a bit confusing. It was very confusing. It was very spy-based.
The hilarious thing is you say 140,000 words and I think, that's a
That's
good
not bad.
solid novel.
Yeah, I like that length.
Yeah.
I do.
But publishers might go, can we split it? in
Particularly
two?
right now when the cost of paper is so high and everyone wants shorter books.
So when you say it's imperfect, do you know what because I'm fascinated by
I
self-awareness.
could go back
all
and fix
this.
it. I just don't know that anyone wants a Napoleonic spy book set in
Apart
France.
from me.
Yeah, because it's mostly in Paris. It was fun. I really enjoyed writing it, but it was sort of what had I written by then? It's probably my 4th or 5th book.
So this was after End of the Night Girl or before?
After End of the Night Girl, and I'd written one other literary book which hasn't sold as well, and I'd written the first Western and one other romance. So there are 2 romances that have never sold, and then there's one literary book that never sold. So I've got 3.
And at what point do you let them go? Or do you ever let them go?
You try and sell them for a while, and then the best advice I ever got was just keep moving.
Yeah.
Yes, that is good advice.
And you see early writers get stuck on the one manuscript and just keep polishing it and going back to
peddling
it.
it
and
around.
It's just write, because you learn more writing the next one, and you get
right.
better and better and better the more you do it.
Mm.
So, they were a long time ago now. I've probably written. Trying to hold on, let me just count because I'm not very good at counting.
How many hands do you need?
So, 3.
She needs an abacus.
7 books since then.
Wow. Have you ever thought about, you mentioned the Evil Empire before, have you thought about putting them out under another name, another couple of Amy's perhaps?
Yeah, I think I'd have to go rewrite them. If I had time, maybe, yeah. I was talking to my agent about this the other day, about, if you say something happened and you got a series cancelled. We were just kind of conceptually talking about book series, about how, you start off and you could go, I could do 2 books or 6 books or 12 books. I could just keep going forever like the way Julia Quinn does with Bridgerton.
Yes.
But in your head, you're constantly playing out all the different ones you could do. And I was just like, I'd be sad not to do all of them. But there's way too many to ever do in a series. Like, you don't want a series to be longer than a few books, really.
And you don't want to hold back good ideas either.
No. But then she was like, well, would you ever consider self-publishing them? It's like, yeah, maybe if I had time, if I wasn't working full-time, if I was, a full-time writer. And yeah, it might be fun if you couldn't find someone to put them out.
Self-publishing it's
a whole skill set.
It's a whole skill
You have to
set,
be your
and
own
it's still a
marketing
crapshoot.
machine
But then,
everything's a crapshoot.
Everything's a crapshoot. That's right. That's what I was
and that
about
would
to
be
say.
where you're doing it for you, right? You're doing it because you're having fun with these characters and you don't want to let them go.
Yeah, and you just want that sense of
But
completion.
You do move on and let them go. That's what you were asking, really, is when do you let it go?
Well, yeah, when do you just close the drawer? I mean, I've experienced this in theatre where, and I know I've talked about this on the podcast before, but the timing's just wrong and you pull it out 2 years later and it's fine.
Yeah.
I mean, that watch list wasn't fine until it was fine.
I did that with the Westerns, like the Tesla Sue books. I wrote that Western 6 years before it sold.
Yeah.
And I couldn't sell it and I put it in a drawer. And then one day I was talking to a publisher and she's like, you wouldn't have any Westerns. I was
Yeah.
like, yes, I do. I didn't sell to her. It sold to someone else, but it was the first time Westerns were coming back.
Yeah, the impetus. And it's sometimes, and I guess what's difficult for any creator is to go, what's something that fundamentally doesn't work versus what's something that I've just got to put aside now for another time. And it's very hard to know.
And when you're a newbie, you have no idea about
No
that.
sense of
you
that.
have everything's personal.
When you kind of have to trust people around you, like your agents or your editors or your beta readers or your peers.
And I feel like I've been reasonably lucky. I think there's only a couple of books which really, of the 3 that have not been published, I think 2 of them are just fundamentally flawed and won't work. I was too green and was just working out what I was doing. But one of them could be probably published.
Do you think there's value just in that process
Yes.
of going, I'm going to do a project to learn how to do a project?
Yes.
Absolutely. If I hadn't written those 5 crappy novels, I wouldn't have learned the skills I need to write the 6th one.
I'm
Sold.
saying 3, but in all honesty, I'm not counting my juvenilia, Sean.
Well,
Because
that's
they
an
never
outrage.
got finished. Oh, one got finished. One did.
I'm only counting finished novels. Yeah, there are other
Yeah.
beginnings.
I have a lot that were like or they were messy and
3/4 done.
The first one I remember starting was about a young boy who discovered a magic sword and went travelling around space killing giant spiders, which would have been ace if I'd finished it. That would have sold for sure.
I did have a rip-off of Sweet Valley High books when I was about 10.
Oh, that's
Wonderful.
cute.
They were triplets instead of twins, and they had dark hair instead of blonde hair.
Completely
so,
different.
it was so different.
I wrote Goblins Galore.
Goblins Galore,
which I sent to Angus and Robinson when I was about 7.
I love that story.
6 or 7.
Johnny had the most, I may have talked about this on the podcast, had the most amazing book his mother still has, and it was called Sea Park. It was right after he saw Jurassic Park.
Oh,
Is it about the giant letter C that they bred and it's stomping around going, C is
my
for
God.
cookie.
we've genetically engineered the letter C.
The star of the book is 9 times Formula One champion Nick Zweck, who is his older brother. And his sister Anna. Like his older sister and his sister Anna. And I was like, Johnny, where are you in this book? He's not in it. The star is his older brother.
It's a little bit adorable.
Yeah, it's really cute. And I'm like, so you're not even the star of your own book here. No.
And Amanda made books too when she was young. My wife Amanda, who I don't know, do I mention her much on the podcast? Anyway,
Yes,
my
you
wife
do.
Amanda.
Hi, Amanda.
Okay. Hi Amanda, and hi Johnny. She used to make little books when she was young, and the thing I love about them, apart from the fact that the stories are great, the illustrations are great, but it would be title of the book by Amanda Nittlebeck, interior design by Amanda Nittlebeck, illustrations by Amanda Nittlebeck, typeset by Amanda Nittlebeck, published by Amanda Nittlebeck, which is just
She's a powerhouse.
So
she is a
cute.
powerhouse. So cute.
That's very cute.
And wanted the credit, as all women should. Yes.
I did also write a high fantasy novel that never ended because I got into it and I filled up like 12 exercise books and I was like, oh my God, I'm so lost in the lore and the world. I don't know what I'm doing anymore.
Did you invent any languages for that? Because it always helps. Or a religion, one of the two.
Oh, Lord.
A religion. My partner wrote, she drew a picture and wrote, this is a picture by Lisa Campbell, and she is a child or something, like, because as a little kid, she was so proud of this. And you look at it now and you go, yeah, I totally believe a child drew that.
She was like, no one will ever believe I'm a child.
Exactly. And you go, no, it's
I did write
on
one.
point.
I was probably like 17, 18. And I actually think in retrospect it was quite good. It was about a band and it was called In the Square and it was about this band on tour and it just deteriorates. And so they start off quite tight and then as the tour goes on it gets worse and worse and worse. And now I'm like, it's just like Almost Famous, really.
Yeah, you were there,
Like,
you
I
were
was
there beforehand. Okay, your memory. I wrote a whole series of books when I was a teenager called Jimmy and the Wizard.
Jimmy
and the Wizard, which was pre-Harry Potter. I mean, I was, but the problem, one of the many
You're
problems.
a wizard, Jimmy.
You're a wizard, Jimmy.
No, Jimmy and the Wizard.
Jimmy and the Wizard.
He's not the wizard.
So it was a bit
You're
like.
not a
You're
wizard,
with a
Jimmy.
wizard. Yeah.
You're near a wizard,
It was
Jimmy.
a bit like Mulder and Scully, except the wizard was the skeptic. So they'd encounter these extraordinary things, and the wizard would go, "Oh, that's not logical, Jimmy. That would never happen." And you're like, "But and
I thought you meant like, that's not magnets, Jimmy, because magnets aren't real. It's clearly goblins.
that would have been better.
That would have been great.
And the evil villain was King Mean Man,
King Mean Man.
and you knew that he was a
Amazing.
likely suspect in most of the hijinks.
Hey, do you know this is what we should do. No, well, I'm not saying, well, I am saying we should do this, but feel free to shoot me down. There's a method of collaboration that I've written about where, I forget what I call it, the resurrectionists or something like that.
That's
where
cool.
somebody's got a dead story or a beginning that's never going anywhere. So you give it to somebody else
Yeah.
and say, here, you work on this. Because
I
you've got
got
nothing to
lots.
lose. So maybe we should exchange something.
I've got a lot of first acts of plays that never went anywhere.
Yeah, so we should maybe do this
should.
with each other as an experiment.
Let's. We could read them out.
all 140,000 words of the Napoleonic
they have
spy
to be
thriller.
short. They have
Oh,
to be short.
true.
I think it's really important that we share all of this because I think one of the myths around writers is that you write something. I had a student once who said, you write something once, you perfect it, you never look at it again. And I went, I love the attitude.
Well, that's the
but
Robert Heinlein method, isn't it?
Yeah, and there are probably 0.0001% of the population that can. But I think it's worth sharing these stories because it just demystifies all of that. And it's
Yes.
messy, it's clumsy. You do write things that that land.
The thing is, you don't want to
dark
hear it
holes.
when you've written a novel because it's so hard
much
and long, and it's so much work that if you say it, so you have to be so careful, right, when you're talking to people, because if you were to say to someone, just put that in a drawer, that's not going to sell.
I would never say that. I don't think I could do it, even if I
would
thought
just
it.
dissolve into having the conversation about when do you stop. They're not ready to hear it yet.
But
So
you always say move on to the next
yeah,
book.
that's the thing you say.
What do I do now I finish my manuscript?
Next one.
Move on.
What did you do with this one?
Keep
Go ahead and
going.
write the next one because
Yeah.
that's the best advice ever.
And one day you'll be glad you didn't publish that.
Oh, that's the other thing too. I
'Cause if
see
the
a lot of
slug in
people
the sky
self-publishing
was
their
there-
first novel.
I
Yeah.
really think the slug in the sky should be there, though.
Oh, it's actually hilarious.
It's going to be so dirty.
I remember the name of one of the alien villains,
Oh,
and it
what
was Katisplukli.
Oh,
And I
you
can
gotta watch
still
out for
spell
him.
it. So,
So you're saying
terrible.
you know people that have self-published novels and regretted
They
that.
self-publish novels, and I worry that they're going to look back on it one day and say, "Hey, that's out on my name, and it's hurting my career now that I'm trying to be a professional author." Because anybody who looks up my name
We'll find that.
will see that book and see the low number of sales and the bad cover and the bad manuscripts. I mean, it's just not to say that some people don't publish great novels, and self-publishing is perfectly valid and full marks for the confidence of getting your book out there, but you've got to be really careful about what you put out there when you're planning to go on. And if you want to do trade publishing, these books are your ambassadors and you want them to be the absolute best they can. And I guess I'm also talking about people who don't employ editors on the books either. So they're going
or don't
very
listen to
raw.
editors when they do give you good. I mean, and sometimes you got to go for a walk, circle back, and then go. But to flip the whole thing on its head, I actually no, I actually struggle the other way when someone says, "Oh, this is good."
Oh, yeah.
There's a part of me that goes, "Nah,
I don't trust you
I
anymore.
don't trust you anymore. What are you, an idiot?"
why
Alex
you're taking
Hickory,
it.
how I don't want to be a member of any club that will hate me.
This is why you take up so much of Darren Nash's time. I think you're basically paying his salary, his six-figure salary.
So he'll say something lovely, and I'll go, "Oh, Darren's just Sean in disguise, trying
When
to
do
make
I
me
say
feel
nice
better."
things to you?
That's true. When do you say nice things?
As in my Darren Nash persona.
So,
That's what I do.
Sean, how often have you? So, what point in your career did you start paying a professional editor before you sent it off?
I'm trying to think if I've done it before now. So
Right, because I've never done it.
I paid Darren. So I've worked with Darren before. Darren bought a space opera trilogy of mine called Astropolis some years ago when he was still in England and working for Orbit. And we worked really well together, and that had nothing to do with Polish spiced vodka that we used to imbibe regularly in London. And when Wakefield produced my collection Uncanny Angles, which came out this year, I had so many stories to choose from that I wanted to engage an editor to help me choose the stories and work on the manuscript. And the first person who came to mind as a freelance editor was Darren, because I knew that he was starting up his professional editing
It's like a
service.
big
and
plug
that
for Darren.
It is a big plug for Darren. He's
Because
a
it's
very,
Sean.
very good editor who's worked on. He's a good editor. He's worked on 2 different continents, and he's great. And I knew we could work well together, so I employed him to do that. And then just a couple of months ago, I thought, well, hey, there's a manuscript here that I don't know how to fix. Perhaps Darren can help me with that. So it's a case-by-case basis, I think. I think I've been really fortunate working in trad publishing that I've worked with very, very good editors down the years. But I have used manuscript assessment services in the past too. I had a manuscript that I couldn't fix and then my editor couldn't fix. So we sent it to a manuscript assessment service, Stephen Dedman. Hi, Stephen.
Hi, Stephen.
Hi, Stephen. And he couldn't fix it either, so we thought we'd just publish it. And it won a lot of awards and got picked up for a TV series.
was
And I
fine.
still think there's something wrong with it, but anyway.
Oh, this is the one you think there's with a specific chapter.
Chapter 3. Something
Yeah.
happens between chapter 2 and chapter 3.
Oh,
it just
you
falls
told me
apart.
this.
It's
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
interesting that.
Yeah. Perhaps if you guys could read that and fix it for me, then I could. I don't know what I do then. Do I then edit it and republish it? No.
No, you just go, that's a flaw, but it's a good book and it did well.
I could release it as an upgrade patch.
like a game.
But again, sometimes imperfection is what makes a book.
Yeah, that's right. So why won't they publish in my mind? It's full of imperfections, apparently.
You need more slugs.
I think, do
it's
you
more.
feel, I mean, I always feel, and this is from a theatre background, there's got to be one person, only one, that I check in with in the writing process. So in a theatre context, that's a dramaturg. It's not actually the director; it's the dramaturg. And
someone who's completely outside the
completely
process.
outside, whose job is to help you research and to be your sounding board and to do that editorial work. And I'm quite what's the word? Drawn to that relationship and very responsive to that relationship. But I go completely mental once it's a committee. I can't handle a committee. I can handle one person, two people maybe. But once there's like 5 in the room, and when you're doing a performative work, there's actors and there's designers and you can't take everyone's feedback on because they have other reasons. Actors want bigger roles or smaller roles, not
I was just about to say, which actor wants a smaller role?
Never smaller roles. But you've got to go, okay. And so I think, circling back to what Amy asked.
What was your question?
The question, why employ an editor is because I've grown up with a kind of paranoia around that. Not a paranoia, a sense of that's how a collaboration works. But it has to be someone you trust. It can't be someone... it can't be someone that you don't feel knows what they're talking about.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Because then it can be quite... And I know for emerging writers, it can be very damaging as well. If you have the wrong person.
Wrong person at the wrong time when you're starting
It's
out.
trial and error too of who you listen to, and you learn to trust your instincts slowly, but you're going to make mistakes.
What about you, Amy? Would you ever consider...
Maybe. I had an offer once... because, publishers are often a little bit skint these days and don't have time to develop a manuscript.
Yes.
They do once you're signed to them, but before you are, they're not. So they did suggest that once, but I just felt like this book was the way I wanted it, and I was happier with it not being published than changing it radically, that particular book. I think because it was a personal book. It's not published.
Not published.
But I love it. I just think it's a personal book. It works for me. It's weird and quirky. It's probably would sell like 10 copies. That's why no one wants it. But I like it the way it is.
Yeah. So it's interesting that when do you really good advice that some playwright gave me once was know when to listen, know when to stop listening. I think that's really important. You can't be arrogant and go in with with your hands over your ears, but you also, like Amy says, there's a point where you go, no, my instinct says this is right.
And
it does depend what you want.
And I'm willing to let it go.
Because in my commercial fiction, I'm much more flexible. Probably less so. Like the Amy T. Matthews books are more in the middle where I will fight a bit more for what I want.
Yes, and it's frustrating in my mind. I'm very flexible too. I'm happy to take advice, happy to perform all sorts of acts of brutality on my book if I feel like that will get them published in a way that's better. But in this particular case, there was nothing they could point to
they couldn't say
do this. It was just like, it's not working. It's like, but just tell me how and I'll fix it.
Yeah, I'll do it. Tell me why. Yeah.
It's quite irksome. I'm used to being able to fix anything.
Yeah.
With the power of will and typing.
And the other problem is, I say this to some of our students, when you've got a certain level of ability, it is really hard to pinpoint what's not working, because on the surface, on a surface level it works. It's written well. There's nothing really glaringly wrong with it. It just doesn't work. And you can get away with a lot if you've got a surface level of ability. And I think with students where publishing's not involved, if you're in a workshop, they let each other get away with a lot because the surface level's working.
Yes.
And it's very hard
over your sins.
Yeah, it's very hard to put your finger on the depth of like what's actually not working.
That's right. Particularly when it's quick too and you've got a lot of other things going on. It takes several reads sometimes to work out what's actually happening in a story. And students often don't have that time.
So you're sending that to Darren now?
Me?
In my mind?
As soon as Darren has time. I emailed him and he said, yes, this sounds great, but I've just received another giant manuscript from our mutual friend.
How many words, Alex?
I don't know. 100, not 140, 110, I think, something like that.
Well, the good thing is that Darren is now very, very busy and a very in-demand freelance editor.
And he's actually Sean.
He's actually Sean.
I wouldn't have time to do it on top of my day job.
I'm really curious just to get an update on this one, Sean, about what he says. Like what the fix is.
Me too. And I know he suggested a mad idea, which I'd already had, which is too long to go into now. But
Oh,
but
tenterhooks.
it would be
Monster
great to do
tenterhooks.
it. I in fact wanted to have two. In fact, I'll describe it very, very briefly. The original novel's about a girl in the remotest county in Texas flying to Australia and then again getting kicked out and sent back home. So COVID happened, and of course the book wouldn't work anymore. But now the flights are flying again, so it could possibly work. And my original plan was to do that version for the American market, but to flip it so it's a girl in a remote area in Australia, flies to America and gets kicked out and flown back. But my Australian publisher said, why would you make life hard for yourself? But then the book didn't happen, and I sent it to Darren, and he said, well, have you thought about making it in Australia going to American and back? And I said, yes, I have. We'll talk about that.
So
next
that's
year.
interesting. Okay, so to be continued.
To be continued, yes. Or not. Darren might actually go, actually, I've read it now. This is terrible. There's something wrong with it. I can't explain to you what's wrong with it, but let's just leave it in the
It's
drawer
just
forever.
cursed.
Just
It's
put it
just
in the
been
drawer.
cursed. That's all it is.
And sometimes you've just got to let it go.
Yeah.
Have you considered a slug?
Yeah. In the sky? Amy!
I think a sexy slug. Is it a sexy slug? I don't know.
That's the name of the ship. It was
Oh!
the name of the spaceship.
I wasn't
just-
getting that. Were you
It's
getting
did
that?
not
so
get that.
bad. It's
No.
This book is so
So it's a really
so
slow
bad.
spaceship?
No, it's very fast. And it's experimental proto ship staffed entirely by men.
Does it
and
look
of course
like a
it
slug?
bumps, yeah, I think so. And it bumps into another spaceship crewed entirely by women.
Oh.
Everything about it is bad. Everything about this
Ba-ba-bow.
book is so It's so bad. It's everything you imagine would come out of a
And if they're
15-year-old.
close to the sun, so it's like really hot.
It's really hot in there.
It's getting hot in here. I'd better
What I
take
would
off all
love-
my clothes.
Can you combine the two stories?
No. I'm never going to go back to the slug in the sky. That's dead in the water.
Well, on
Get in the
that
sky.
macabre and
Deeply revealing.
salacious note, a big
I
thank
think there's
you.
a lot of 15-year-old boys who have had their slug in the sky moment, Sean.
I think you're quite right. And there is
a
some
new trope.
50-year-old men who are still trying to have their slug in the sky moment. Let it go. Let go of the slug, men. No, hang on. Let
no
go
one
of the slug,
wants your
men.
slug.
I'll never garden the same way again. Thank you to you both.
Thanks. I think
Let's keep hammering away, typing away, hoping that not all of them will end up in the drawers.
Or
And
in the ground.
Or in the ground.
dead tomes.
Until
But
we...
Darren is looking forward to seeing them all.
Maybe I should send him a slug in the sky and say,
should.
here,
I
can
think
you
he'd
fix
love
this?
He might love it.
He's too good a friend. I couldn't do it.
And until next time, happy writing.
Happy writing.
Happy writing.
Why don't you write when you don't need money? All your notes sound alike too much. All of them starts with I love you, honey, but they end with the same old touch. Just for a change, send a nice loving letter and cut out that please remit. Why don't you write when you don't need money, honey? That would certainly make a hit.
Slug in the sky, you pervert.
I was 15, of course I was a pervert. That's what 15-year-olds are. It's like asking a dog to be prime minister to ask a 15-year-old not to be a pervert. Isn't it? Or is it just me?
Sort of.
Sort of? Oh, maybe I drew
have
too
been
long
worse.
ago. The next book was the worst, actually, because it was a very angry,
Please tell me what
frustrated
that's
book.
called.
I can't remember what it was called. I was thinking it was very deep.
Were you a bit of a goth?
Jesus. No, I wasn't a goth. Internally, I was a goth.
Yeah,
But
okay.
externally, I was
I was
just a nerd.
externally a goth and internally a very cheery person.
Were you? I got to see photos of you as a goth.
Oh, I can send them to you. But the problem was I never stopped smiling, which didn't really fit the goth thing.
Sort of a
Black
Harley
lipstick,
Quinn sort
but
of
smiley.
vibe.
Do you know the Proscenium?
Yes, the Proscenium. That was such a great club. I loved it
Yes.
there. That was such
my
a good
God.
club. And
Flashbacks.
it was
Yes.
the only club I ever felt comfortable dancing
Oh, wow.
because there were only like 3 or 4 different moves, and I could do all of them. It was so great, and the music was awesome.
Back in the day.
Back in the day at the Proscenium. Oh,
Proscenium. We might have been there at the same time.
May
yeah.
have been.
Just Sean alone on the dance floor in the background. Love will tear us apart again.
I thought you were going to sing "Love and Other Bruises," which is not very gothic, actually. Now I think about it,
Aw.
that was such a good club, though. I need chocolate. Amy, I'm so glad you brought these chocolates.
The Slug in the Sky.
Yeah, what a great title.
It's just, it's not leaving me for a while.